I think a lot of people think that the parties are no longer serving their interests or their desires. It happens. It's happened before in American history, plenty of times. Parties are always coalitions anyway, so there's always somebody who's feeling as if they're not getting, not being served well by the party. But it's gotten to be a real cleavage these days. One of the big reasons is 2008, which was a big, big year looking back on it. I mean, not only the financial crash, but Obama's election. Obama's election really signaled the end of the culture war that had been driving Republican politics for a very long time. I mean, it meant it was going to be over. It continued, but really rearguard actions, but that was it. And then the crash. I mean, in American history, the question of inequality has been a perennial. We think of it now as something that's suddenly come up, but it's been a perennial. It's always there. The idea that somehow vast inequalities of wealth in particular are dangerous for a democracy. There's nothing new. But the idea kind of, it can submerge for a very long time. And it did submerge for a very long time. In 2008, brought it right back up again with a ferocity that we're seeing on the campaign trail today. The very beginning of American history, American politics, the question of slavery and race was there from the very beginning. And it was actually being agitated, although at the margins at first. It was later going to become more mainstream. So that's always an aspect of American politics, the question of slavery and its legacy in American political history. The economics, from the very beginning, Washington's administration, arguments about how the country should, questions about where the country should be headed, what kind of country we are supposed to be. There were some who thought that by bringing in a moneyed class, by building a moneyed class to consolidate the economy, that's the Hamiltonian view. There were others who thought that no, power and economics really ought to be decentralized, more the Jeffersonian view, more spread around. That's putting it very crudely, but that's kind of what it was. It was an issue from the very start. And you can see that issue playing itself out. We've seen in American history that there have been divergences and convergences. The period in American history, for example, after World War II, historians and economists call it the Great Compression, the Great Convergence, where vast inequalities left over from the 1910s, 1920s actually began to narrow. And that continued right into the 1970s. So American politics, and it's about politics primarily, has had the means and the ways to flatten those differences, to make them less garish, less to make them less severe than they've normally been. Since the 1970s, there's been a pressure towards divergence. It really began to take off during the 1980s, and Reagan's policies made a big, big difference in terms of not only tax policy, but in terms of deregulation as well. We're seeing the fruits of all that, the bitter fruits of all that in the 2000s. And the deregulation and the financial collapse in 2008 only made it worse. So the political decisions that the country made and the policies that followed after that have enormous consequences.